Some stories don't just live in the past. They shape the present, and if you're lucky, they help guide the future too. In 1934, Brooks Stevens started a design firm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he believed that design could be more than just styling. It could be business, strategy, engineering, innovation, and more importantly, a legacy. A way of thinking that outlives the objects it created. 90 years later, that belief still drives us. And 60 years ago, on a sketch pad in a corner of that same studio, another legacy was born, Excalibur cars. A blend of vintage elegance and performance swagger. A bold design statement that, like Brooks himself, never quite followed the rules. This talk is a reflection, a moment to pause and to look back at the ideas, the people, and the passions that all made it happen. Steve Stevens opens the evening, sharing stories from his father's early life and the beginnings of a company that would become a fixture in American industrial design. Dave Stevens continues the thread, tracing the birth of the Excalibur and the rise of a true automotive icon. And Alice Preston, who kept the Excalibur legacy alive with her own devotion, closes the evening with personal memories that can only come from a lifetime of living it. We were honored to be joined by special guest, motorcycle legend Willie G. Davidson, who reflected on the moment in 1947 when Brooks Stevens penned the Hydroglide and helped set the design direction for Harley-Davidson, a direction that still defines the brand to this day. The past isn't just stories and artifacts. It's fuel, it's inspiration, it's the reason why we're still designing with purpose and dreaming with ambition. This is more than a celebration. It's a thank you to the people who came before us, the machines that moved us, and the ideas that still make us proud to say, this is Brooks Stevens.
Get over it. Let me start with how we got here. I got to go back 113 years when this all started. 1911. Brooks Stevens was born to William Clifford Stevens, nicknamed Steve. I'm named after him. And he married Sally Morgan, who became Sally Stevens. So Sal and I got married. I have Sally Stevens. I'm William Clifford Stevens. Steve. So the best thing came out, we got all the bathroom towels because they're all monogrammed. So those were the parents of us that brought us up. And when Dad was 8 years old in 1919, he contracted polio. Remember, we had the end of the pandemic in 19 and 20, then we had the other one in the early 50s for several years. I had a lot of friends my age that got taken in by that. So when Dad got polio, he got to church that day. There were 9 of them that went there. 7 of them got polio. The next time he went to church was when he got married. He said, I'm not going back in there to get the polio. So he went through that. That's when he started to design, do this styling. But he couldn't do any sports and athletics. He didn't have the ability to do that. So he started doing designing work, which his father got him into. So the only 2 things he could really do as he got older was design and chase the ladies, which I understand he did quite a bit of. Talk about the kids right well. So he used to go swimming. His father would take him down to the MHC to go swimming. Told him in the lake, into the pond, in the pool, and said, okay, when you're 16, you can swim 2 laps, you'll get a car. So by the time he was 16, he was finally able to make 2 laps, he got a car. And they parked it in a garage down the street with another neighbor that had a car. And Dad was going to take it out Sunday one time. And actually it was his father's car that was parked down there. And Dad went and he was going to take it out for a ride one night. And backing it out of the garage, he hit the side post of the garage and put a dent in it. But oh, what the hell am I going to do now? So Dad's going to get home, I'm going to be in big trouble. So he went back in the garage and looked around, found a hammer. Went to the neighbor's car and put a big dent in it. He said, that way when the neighbor comes home, he's gonna think that he did. But he was fairly creative in this. I think some of that rubbed off on some of the kids also. He then attended Cornell University, which is where his father had gone. And he left there right at the Depression in 1931. He came back to Milwaukee. He was studying architecture at the time. Of course, during the recession, the Depression, there was no architecture work going on. So he had to go into designing products. And the first thing he came up with was the wholesome wide mouth peanut butter jar. Because he complained that when you had the small neck, you could never get the last bit of the peanut butter out. So he created the wide mouth design so he could get his spoon down there to get it all out. He also did work for Cutler Hammer. His father was the vice president of engineering for Cutler Hammer. The two main things he was known for was, one, he created all the electronic controls for the locks in the Panama Canal. He spent 2 years down there and had several illnesses that you get with being in that part of the world. So he created that, and he also did the pre-selector gear shift. The old days, you had the crash gearboxes, so you had to double clutch it to change gears. And the ladies had a tough time getting those synchronized. So they developed the switches for the synchronization, so you could push a button and electronically it made the shift. And then when you wanted to shift, you hit the clutch and then it automatically shifted. But he tried to sell that to a number of the clients or the manufacturers in automobiles, but they didn't really take it up. So those were two things he was known for. Well, he got married in 1937 to Alice Cutmeyer, and he used to date her older sister, Marguerite, but then I guess he settled on Mary. So in 1939, the first one arrived being my brother David. And so he was born in 39. I came along in 43. And we had a sister who passed away just 2 years ago in 47. And Kip, the youngest, who took over the dad's design firm in 1951. So Dad came home, I think, once every 4 years. And evidently that's how we got the four of us out of this. Interesting in the genetics. Each one of us had a different ability or field. David was the brilliant engineer and knew how to build stuff. I remember him as a kid taking the lawnmower apart and putting that on a little chassis to drive around in a go-kart. I was kind of the business and financial and knew how to do the marketing. And then Kip had this design and styling ability. He was very good at sitting down and making lovely drawings. Dad was primarily a marketer. He knew what the consumer wanted to buy, and he would come up with designs that appealed to the marketplace at the time. So he was very good at that. Kip was a very good designer and knew how to do the drawings. What Dad used to do is he always carried an envelope in his pocket, and he came up with an idea. He'd see something, he'd do a sketch on it, take it to the back room and hand it to the guy. Here's the idea, what I want. I want you to take this and put it into a pretty drawing. The guy would start to work because he had to go get the next client and then go get the next design done. So he did a lot of his designs by that method. Clients, a lot of you know here, Miller Brewery is one of the big ones, and he saw cross that you see on the big sign down on State and 30th, I think. Created all the Miller packagings from the 30s, the 50s. Fred Miller, he was the head of the company at the time, with good friends with Dad, and I still remember it was 51 or so when Fred Miller's plane crashed, taking off out of Mitchell Field there, and Dad came home. He and Mother had been at a big party that evening. They came home early, and one of the few times I ever saw my father really sobbing after they announced that he didn't make it through the crash there. But other companies that Brian mentioned earlier, Briggs and Stratton, he did all of their stuff. Alan Bradley, Kearney and Treffer, a lot of local companies. They designed products for over 1,000 companies throughout the country. A lot of them were over in Europe also. Food Broad Manufacturing, J.C. Bamford, they're a version of Caterpillar, the English version of Caterpillar. He did all the work for them. Then after the war, he was into consumer products and, of course, automobiles. Kaiser Frazer hired him in 49, and he created the Kaiser Frazer Dragon and the Frazer Manhattan. He did that whole line of products, and then he came up with the with the Jeepster. In fact, there's a Pennings that just came out. I saw it this morning. There's a big article about the story of the Jeepster in New York, and they talk all about the car and what they did with that. So he created the Jeepster, which was basically made out of the Jeep from the war. So they were trying to create kind of a semi-sports car out of that. So he built that. He designed it with them from 49 to 56. And then he started with Studebaker when Willie shut down in Willow Run, Ohio there. They moved everything down to Brazil, and Dad was down there several times doing designs for them when they built the cars down there because they sold all the tooling to the Brazilian company and made the Willies down. So then along comes Studebaker in 59. I'm sure you know the name Raymond Loewy. He and Dad didn't get along too well. None of the designers did. They had a little thing called ego that got in each other's way. I remember Dad was telling me one time, largest club in the world is the NIH club, which was the engineers. Not invented here. If it wasn't their idea, it wasn't going to go anywhere. So he had a knack of creating presentations that you would take to companies for the engineering and show them different designs, but he steered it around to them so they would come back with the idea, oh, Kip, why don't you do it this way? So they bought into his designs. So he did a lot of that. So as to how did the Excalibur come about, as Raymond Loewy had done the Avante. And that came out in 63, I think. So in February of 64, Dad asked me, he said, Steve, he said, I got a chance to build a car here for Studebaker for the New York Automobile Show. I want to call it the Mercedes. It was the Mercedes
Speech of my hand.
One of the questions I ask when I do presentations.
No, I don't think
I
so.
wanted to buy a Mercedes in 1963. Where do you buy it? I was giving a presentation a couple years ago down in Naples, Florida, at the Reds Institute, which is the Collier collection, great collection of vehicles. About 75 of the docents were there. The youngest guy in the crowd was about 40, and he was the only one raises his hand. He said, you bought him at a Studebaker Packard dealer. I said, how do you know that? He said, my grandfather was a Studebaker Packard dealer. So he said, I said, on the floor. But most of the people didn't know that. Mercedes didn't start their own dealership network until 1965, when Mercedes-Benz of North America started. So Dad came up with the idea of this car called the Mercedes, and he asked me, we're at the Chalet Motel out on the Port Road. He said, do you think you could build it? So he sketches this out on the placemat there. And it looked like, well, the prototype is here somewhere, I guess, in the back or somewhere, the #1 car. So, in fact, this little model here was made by our 10-year-old granddaughter in a 3D printing process. He made this. So it's pretty good for a 10-year-old doing stuff like that. So she told me a couple days when I would say, would you like to take this car? I said, I'd love to have that. So how creative these kids can be at 10. So,
How do you get there?
one of the twins there. So she did that. So I said, okay, Dad, when does this have to be done? This was like February 1st. Oh, it's going to go to the New York Show April 10th. I said, oh, February, March, that's like 8-9 weeks then. So I got two of the other people. David, my older brother, had his own R&D business at the time, research and development. He was doing stuff with a product called Flood Check. Remember the old days when it got too hot, the fuel pump would get hot and you'd get air in the line and it would back up and you couldn't do, well, this was the thing that routed the gas from one side of the fuel pump around the other side. So he was working on projects like that. For myself and Ray Bazzi Jr., some of you might have heard the name Ray Bazzi Sr., was quite an inventor and built some unusual cars in his career over on Van Buren Street. So Ray Jr. and myself and Jules Mayer built the car in 6 weeks. And all aluminum body, we built 3 like that. And We finished it the night before the show, so it was open. Jewel and I put it in our truck, drove it out to New York for the show, and then I took the car, went and drove back. This was when the show used to be at the Javits Center, which was on Columbus Circle, the GM building being right next door. And so I go find the Studebaker guy, and I said, all right, I got the Mercenator here, where does it go? I don't know, and I don't get an SHIT. I said, oh, that sounds good. He said, don't you read the paper? And I said, what do you mean? I've been driving the truck all night. Well, we're closing the business, and I'm out of a job, so I don't know what you're going to do. And that's probably the best thing to happen to us, because, you know, a lot of these specialty vehicles that the big manufacturers made as show cars wound up going back and putting the compressors squeezed out. They got rid of it. So I called Dad and said, what do we do now? He said, well, if you want to stay there, he said, I'll call Jerry Martin and we can get a space to display it. So on the third floor, they gave us the best spot in the place, right next to the hot dog and beer stand where everybody came to. So I stayed out there, and then a fellow by the name of Gary Allen, no relation to Don Allen, Midtown Chevrolet, which is the main level of the GM building, came over. He was the Corvette specialist for them. He said, if you put Chevrolet engines in this, I could sell these things. I said, well, that's no problem, because the Studebaker wasn't going to build the engine anymore anyway. I only found out a few weeks ago, my wife and I were down in South Bend at the Studebaker Museum. If you ever get a chance to go through South Bend, besides seeing Notre Dame, go see the Studebaker Museum. It is absolutely fantastic. They own the 3 prototypes that Dad had designed for Studebaker Corporation. They acquired those years ago. So they're on display, but Studebaker was the original builder of the Conestoga wagon that got all of our great grandparents and that across to California in the 1800s. He got examples of those and everything else they built. So if you ever get a chance to go to South Bend, go to the Studebaker Museum and see it. Also, my wife took me over to Notre Dame to see the famous grotto, where I guess they do weddings and stuff there. So we did that. So I called it. He says, all right, well said, we got a place to display the car. Jerry Allen comes over and talks about how he could sell these things. I said, well, this sounds good. How long will it take you to build them? Oh, we don't consider myself. I built this in 6 weeks. This is easy. Well, when you build one of something, it's easy because you don't have to know if the right side looks like the left side, because you can't see both sides at the same time. But now you got to get the tooling and build interchangeable parts, all kinds of things like that. So we put the car on display. People asked if we could build one for someone. I said, sure. Well, that was in the middle of April. My wife and I had gotten engaged in the previous December. We were planning on getting married in June. So we did two more things with the car. It went to the design engineering show in Chicago that year, which was at the McCormick place. And then a friend of mine, Charlie Malika, who God you know well, he and I went down to Chicago, got the car out of the museum or out of the show. He and I drove it straight out to California to the John Bond Road and Track show out there, put it on display. Charlie drove it back by himself. So, take it out there straight through in 38 hours. From a long haul. I lost the fender in Albuquerque. That's good. Bounced between the fender bracket and the tire. Knocked off, so I stopped at a body shop in Albuquerque. I said, could I borrow some of your tools for a bit? I'll gladly pay you $50 for it. Oh no, he said, I'm a professional. I'll fix it. I said, what? I know what the problem is. I can fix it. No. He said, I'll take care of it. So he took care of it. I got 10 miles out of town. I had the fender back on the rack again. It bounced off. When I got out to California, I went to Briggs Cunningham shop and used their tools, and I had it fixed. So that got us through there. And the publicity, well, Sally and I then got married June 13th of 64. We just celebrated our 60th anniversary with the same person. And the automobile, we made 60 years. The automobile company made, I think, 24. So we're ahead of that. And when we upgraded, he was a major part of making everything happen. So we started when we came back from our honeymoon, which we went to follow the race circuit over here. We started with the Le Mans 24-hour race. We went north to Rule for the F1 race, then we crossed the pond to go to England to go to the Brands Hatch Formula One race and saw that and then came home. Well, when we got back, all the publicity started to come out, letters, inquiries, all kinds of stuff. And I went to talk to David. I said, Dave, we might have a chance to start a business here. And I think I can get some of these things sold, at least there's interest in this. How about you and I starting a business together? The original name was SS Automobiles, which was either after the Mercedes-Benz SS that the car was patterned after, or it was the SS for Stevens and Stevens, which I did. Or it could have been Steve Stevens. And so we started that. Dave said, yeah, I can do that. So he and I got started because he was such a brilliant engineer creating the stuff I tried, because I didn't want to build this stuff as well as he did, but I was the tinker, and Jules and Ray were the two guys that built a lot of the original car with the aluminum bending and that stuff. I was just the back end. So we got that put together, and I decided to start the business. And I have a video that will play, and that will show you, it was a promotional piece that we did in the early 80s. How the cars we built and how we manufactured it. And Dave was responsible for the all engineering. You know, the engineers are brilliant, but they have one fault. They're never done designing because they have a better idea tomorrow. Well, they don't want to start to build it today because tomorrow I'll have a better idea and we'll redo that. Those are the only battles I have with David, trying to convince him. You know, Dave, I got to make a payroll on it Friday. We got to get these things out the door. So I got money to pay the guys. Okay, we actually have some, we get production. So why don't we run that video?
These are among the most beautiful, the most admired, the most desired automobiles in the world. It was the golden age of motoring, when names like Hispano-Suiza, Packard, Cord, Mercedes-Benz meant style, grace, and elegance, especially elegance. An age that exists today in memory, in lovingly compiled books, and is here in a very few carefully restored and essentially unobtainable originals. But the style, the elegance, the grace of motoring's golden age also lives today in a car that remembers and respects that classic heritage, but brings it to you with state-of-the-art technology and the comfort and convenience demanded in a contemporary luxury automobile. This is the Excalibur, born of tradition, living in today, lasting into tomorrow. Excalibur automobiles are carefully assembled by 125 specialized craftsmen and women in a 95,000 square foot facility in Milwaukee. The time and care required to create an Excalibur dictates that only a limited number will be available each year.
The Excalibur is not based on an existing automobile. The chassis was specifically designed for the car. I'm convinced that's the only way to achieve the strength, performance, and safety an Excalibur owner demands. No compromises. We start with thick-walled steel tubing, which is cut to exact specifications and then precision welded. The four-wheel independent suspension is modified for the Excalibur from proven General Motors parts. Our four-wheel disc brakes are the same as those used on the Corvette. The final step is a complete anti-corrosion paint, ensuring years of trouble-free life. The design of the Excalibur Roadster and Phaeton bodies draws its inspiration from the classic era of motoring. The painstaking process of hand-laying fiberglass enables us to achieve the elegant and complex lines of that era, and to ensure the closest tolerances between the body and the mechanical components beneath. Each body part is carefully hand sanded to ensure a perfectly smooth surface that is hand sprayed in the customer's personal choice of color in a temperature and humidity controlled booth. Here, in a quieter part of the plant, each center console is covered with custom selected upholstery. Controls for the power windows and door locks are installed. The hand-finished natural wood instrument panel is fitted with yards of wiring necessary to control all the functions of a modern luxury automobile. The body is then mated to the chassis, which has its General Motors V8 engine and automatic transmission in place. Hundreds of steps over many days are required before an Excalibur rolls into the sunshine to begin the trip to your dealer. My brother Steve and I have been building Excalibur since 1964.
During the past 20 years, we've manufactured over 2,500 Excalibur automobiles. Our first car, the Series 1, the amenities were few, the fun and excitement abundant.
The next car is the Series 2, the first Excalibur built on our own chassis to meet federally mandated safety standards.
The Series 3 was more refined, a natural extension of the concept established with the first series.
In designing the Series 4, we decided to take a dramatic step. The tradition would be honored, but there would be more, much more.
The Excalibur Series 4. In the Excalibur tradition, the style, the grace, the elegance the tradition demands, but in harmony with the appointments, the comfort and convenience features, the amenities the owner of a contemporary luxury automobile demands. Every Excalibur leaves the factory fully equipped. The owner's only task is to select the color of the exterior and interior. At the driver's fingertips, power windows, central door locking system, air conditioning, stereo cassette sound system, tilt steering wheel. The power convertible top is completely hidden when retracted. The Roadster's rumble seat is electrically operated. And surrounding it all, what can only be called the look. Unique. Excalibur. This is the Excalibur family. One of them. There's another we'd like you to meet, the family of Excalibur owners.
Why do I own an Excalibur? Like any owner, I fell for the look, but there was more. I know quality and engineering. Those are the things that have made my business successful. And when I saw the quality and engineering that go into an Excalibur, I was sold.
I like old cars, the way they look and what they represent. I owned a couple of the old beauties and can't drive them all the time because they're too rare and not very comfortable, to be honest. I owned several Excaliburs. They gave me the best of both worlds, then and now. The incredible thing is I always get more in trade than what I paid for them originally.
Why did I buy an Excalibur? Well, I'm a businesswoman, and from a business point of view, two good reasons. First, I think it's a very good investment. My Excalibur is worth today as much, if not more, than I paid for it. Secondly, when I park that car in front of Lighting Unlimited, you'd be amazed at how many people come to the store just to inquire about it. One of my best sales started just that way. But that's not the whole story. It's really just a lot of fun.
I live in California. We have more exotic and expensive cars than any other place in the whole world. Ferraris, Porsches, Lamborghinis, Maseratis are all over the place. They're as common as stop signs. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, they're so common, people don't even pay any attention to them anymore. I might as well drive a Chevy. But you can't say that about Excalibur.
The car is made right to go along with the great looks.
Driving an Excalibur is sort of living in the past in air-conditioned comfort and with stereo.
Besides, I think I deserve something special. Why wait to be nice to yourself?
People notice it, they want to talk about it, and what a great way to meet new friends. Eat your heart out.
Elegance and grace in perfect harmony with the environment. An Excalibur is meant to be driven. At home on the boulevard, equally as comfortable and competent on a challenging piece of your favorite country byway. And when that bit of blacktop seems to be reaching up to meet you, urging you on, an Excalibur is up to the challenge. Man, with all his ingenuity, has been able to create few automobiles quite like this one. An Excalibur is a very special motor car. It makes the everyday seem somehow a bit special. and its elegance, its refinement add the final touch to those carefully planned special occasions. Carefully planned candlelight and wine? Excalibur perfect. But life isn't one carefully planned step after another, or it shouldn't be. Sometimes what's planned least happens best. Waiting just beneath an Excalibur's sophisticated elegance lies a mischievous brashness, a spontaneity. Special times just happen when you own an Excalibur. This then is Excalibur. Timeless but modern, classic but contemporary. A bold statement by those responsible for the engineering and craftsmanship that created it. A bold statement for those privileged few who will own it. Excalibur. An investment in quality, in pure motoring pleasure, in a way of life. Excalibur. Born of tradition. Living in today. Lasting into tomorrow. Drive one today and understand.
We did that in 81 or 2 when the Series 4. I was wondering, David had it in here design all the power window system, which all should be.
I got it. You'll really want it then.
Maybe recall the car in December, which was built down in Palm Beach, Florida. There was the Plane. All of those were basically built on Mustangs. And what the Land Plane and Paul's ever did when they built it, they took the front flip off. Front flip came from the windshield forward. We took that off, put the fiberglass piece on, but they used all the Mustang door mechanism, windshield sealing, window operate, all that stuff. A lot simpler than what we had. We built the cars. We had about 3,500 parts in each car. We made about 1,500 ourselves, and another 2,000 we bought from 500 vendors from around the world. But I'll let Dave talk about some of the engineering things that he went through. And I'm going to finish off with the Wheelmobile story. And got a few stories on that one. And then Dad's involved with I had, where everybody's going to be on Sunday night. Well, Dave, I'll let you give a little discussion of what you did for your creative engineering.
Realize bringing all this back. So, we're born to do something with wheels. There's a story behind that too, that father is very to making happen. When I was young, I seemed to always want to make things first out of wood and out of metal. Pedal vehicles and self-propelled little vehicles. And when I got to be 16, I had the honor of being taken for rides in all my father's cars. So I was driving those cars illegally in the city of town of Mecklenburg, at a very early age. And then I started building my own garage at 16 and doing my own car work in my own garage. The irony of it is, I used this story several times, that most fathers like that way with their children. Just wanted to be busy either with sports and this and doing that. And he would say, David, you want to build this thing, drawing layout of what you want. I will get you the materials to build it. You better finish it. Otherwise, it won't be any good practice. So I've given a good work ethic at the age about doing what I wanted to do, finishing it. And Stevie was somewhat right. There was nothing more exciting than the next project I was thinking about doing before it started. And I think that's just part of what was more creativity in my end of it. And was also smart enough not to do the same thing with Brother Stevie. Don't need 2 engineers and no salesmen. And so you can see how we're dressed here. I'm the engineer and he's the salesman. The next thing is what we went through, 20 plus years of being in business together, about fighting with each other. one of the groups I was involved in at an early age was the Young President's Organization. People where, you know, fathers ran businesses and then sons took over the companies and so forth and so on. And we saw many family disasters occur in that rank and file. The son took over the business and didn't do well with it or didn't do anything with it except live off of it. And a lot of things just faded away. But today, a still viable automobile after 60 years that Alice Preston has kept going for the last 20 plus years. Very important niche in this, keeping this going. So I'm just proud to be here. The business, it's lasted 50% of the total automotive years of 120, which saw something on a historical thing on. I didn't realize Packard had been in the business almost the same length of time, since the beginning of 20 years. It's hard to believe. But we're still here at 50% of the automotive age. And as you can see from this promotional video, you can get into a lot of trouble. It made many marriages and it broke up many marriages. There was a period of time when people were buying Excaliburs and keeping them at their other home. And the wife never even knew we had the car. So, you can see it's a lot of fun with it. Most of us now are just too old to enjoy the ramifications. So what I'd like to do is, since we are now 42 years since this video was done, I'm 85 now, so it's 50% of my life. So I don't want to be responsible for either the tone that I'm talking in or the memory of what I've got left to provide you with the facts of this. So Alice came across another video that shows officially talking about the company to a radio station in West Dallas and in 1982. And then there's a little bit in there about the fact that the company was just what you saw here. But anyhow, you can bear with me, it's another 30 minutes. At least the story will not be enhanced because it was me 42 years ago telling me that. So it's accurately correct. Period. Well, we can put up with that. Well, we're going to answer questions if you have anyone. So, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jim McNichol, host for this edition of McNichol Presents, a program that features unique and well-known area personalities. We have a special show for you this evening. During the next 1/2 hour, we're going to take a close look at one of the pride and joys of the Milwaukee area. No, there will be no examination of our well-known brewing industry or of Milwaukee, the manufacturing-oriented city. But we are going to explore one of the nation's oldest and largest manufacturers of limited production automobiles. Our attention will focus on a vehicle that is a leader in the classic motor car field because of its nostalgic design and handcrafted workmanship. The automobile is known by its owners and other admirers as a legend. Its name is Excalibur. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present my guest, a man who, with his brother, designed and built this car, the president of Excalibur Automobile Corporation, Mr. David Stevens. Welcome.
Jim.
I think the first thing we want to do is talk about the history of the car. Where did it start?
Well, it started in a rather unusual way in 1963. My younger brother and I had an automobile development center. In fact, me being 4 years older than him, I think he was just barely out of high school. And we were building one-off race car and prototype components for the auto industry. And my father came in one night with a sketch of a vehicle on the back of a...
Brooks Stevens.
A well-known industrial designer of things other than automobiles for 40-some years. And he came in with a design on the back of a envelope and said, I've been commissioned by the Studebaker Corporation to come up with an unusual vehicle for their space in the New York Automobile Show.
That was in '64.
That was November of '63 for the '64 show in April. And that's how it all started. The Studebaker Corporation closed right around the beginning of the year, so therefore they didn't need the special exhibit. And we took the vehicle to New York ourselves and exhibited on our own, and that's what basically started the business.
Where does your interest begin?
Well, my interest began basically as a child born on four wheels almost, in building all kinds of pedal-type conveyances and so forth. And as I graduated up through the years of seeing my father collect classic cars, naturally as I approached 16 I became more automobile-orientated. And from a design and development standpoint, I was interested in producing limited numbers of the car that we took to the New York Automobile Show as a one-off exhibit. We had no intention of building more than one car at the time we displayed it. But we had about 8 people that came back and said, I will pay any price if you can duplicate this vehicle for me with its modern-day components combined with its nostalgic
That's one of the unique features of it, modern-day components with the nostalgia look.
Exactly.
I want to mention that the executive vice president of Excalibur Corporation is your brother, of course, William Steve Stevens.
Right.
Who operates in the financing end, marketing end, and...
We have 2 interesting areas of this, and that's probably one reason we're successful. Usually any 2 family members have trouble getting along in a business, but because our backgrounds are from 2 totally opposite ends, we dovetail together very nicely and, of course, rely on each other's professions within the business to cater to their own ends.
But you are the engineer and the designer.
And handle manufacturing concepts and everything involved in getting a product to sell.
Why was the Excalibur, why did you select Milwaukee as the place to build your automobile?
Well, I guess you could say 2 reasons. You know, when you get into a business that you're not quite sure how you got into until several years later, you find yourself, to begin with, in Milwaukee. As a family, we've always been here in Milwaukee. And I think even more importantly to the development of the product, Milwaukee being an industrial town has all the job shops and everything necessary to produce this vehicle. I've been asked, why don't you produce it in Florida? Why don't you produce it in San Juan? We looked at that back in the mid-'60s for tax reasons and everything else, but there wasn't the background industry to make the car possible.
And I understand, too, that how many parts go into the automobile? 5,000?
They're close to 5,000 individual components, of which 80% or 4,000 of them are our own design.
And a large percentage of those 4,000 can be manufactured in Milwaukee. Is that
Absolutely.
correct? I want to get into the design aspect of it now. First of all, the sword, or the symbol.
Excalibur sword.
Excalibur sword.
It's King Arthur's symbol, meaning invincible, because it was withdrawn out of the rock and used as the legendary sword. In the last year, of course, you've seen a very popular film come out called Excalibur. Interestingly enough, when we walk around with our Excalibur logos on our sweater, they say, oh, are you part of the movie? And it's now a tussle as to whether we made the fact that the movie Excalibur came out basing on the name Excalibur as something somebody understands, or whether Excalibur film is doing a lot for us.
I don't think you have to look very far and say the Milwaukee Journal to find out also a product that's advertised and that has that heading Excalibur.
Yeah, that's also an interesting thing.
Is there any infringement?
Well, we can only trademark that idea in the automobile sector. I have seen references of everything from men's toupees right on down to gosh knows what that are trailing on the name Excalibur.
Now, the design of the frame, now, it's a fiberglass body. And for those who don't understand that, what is the advantage of fiberglass? It's less expensive?
No, there's 2 reasons, one of which I feel we've exemplified very much in this car. When you see photos or pictures of the car, you notice the graceful lines the car has. Right. You cannot do that in metal without very expensive tooling and dies. Something in that neighborhood would cost anywhere from $25 to $30 million. Obviously, when you build 250 cars a year, you can't amortize that kind of tooling. Fiberglass loves curved structures. That's one main thing. You can get the styling design you're looking for. Secondly, it's totally corrosion resistant. So therefore, you don't have the aspect that you hear about today with their lightweight cars as to whether the metal is protected properly from rust or whether the car just literally dissolves out from under you. There's no fear of either of those with the fiberglass material.
And one of the things that I envy of an Excalibur owner is they don't have to put up with the sameness of automobiles that we buy from Detroit.
Well, that's true, and it's true all the way through, because people buy the Excalibur based on impression first, and usually they only learn about the construction aspects of the car, the resale values, all these other things after they've owned it for a period of time. We feel that we are not building just a parade float that happens to look good and everything else is secondary, as exhibited in a lot of what we call the custom conversion cars that are running around today.
And much less expensive.
Yes.
Now, the amenities. Now you started out in the 60s with a Series 1.
Oh, yeah. The Series 1, 2, 3, and now presently since 1980 the Series 4. We change the model once every 5 years. We feel that's a fair time for the amortization of the tooling we have, the amount of time that we can put improvements in the car that then, in a sense, maybe I've coined something that my father started years ago called planned obsolescence, but I like to feel that every generation of the car has something more to offer. Obviously, with inflation being what it is, the car is going to become more expensive. If it's going to become more expensive, people expect more car for the dollar. So therefore, if you look back through the 4 stages of the vehicle we've built, each one represents a higher state of elegance than the previous car.
Okay, I'm going to ask the director to go to the tape. We sent a video crew out to the Excalibur plant in West Dallas a couple of days ago. We have some interesting footage here. As you see now, that's the Series 4 Roadster, is it not?
Yes. The Roadster has the rumble seat configuration in the back, which is new for 1981. The previous Roadsters of the 3 series did not have rumble seats.
What are we looking at here? This is the first stage, is it not?
This is the beginning of the fiberglass operation. The whole car is made up of what is called hand layup fiberglass, as versus the more industry-wide use in the boat industry, which is the chopper gun type thing. This is all first laid out with resin and applied to a mold. The gentleman there is applying that at this point. Then they roll it out to get all the air pockets out of it. Now we, of course...
What is he working on now?
He's working on a kind of a running board configuration there.
And that's a roller that eliminates the air pockets.
Yes, that's the most important thing with fiberglass, is that basically you get all the air pockets out between the glass mat layer you put on and the gel coat underneath.
I noticed that some of the employees were wearing masks. Is that necessary?
That's a protective thing from the dust aspect. As you can see by the gentleman grinding here, the dust that normally would get into your system can be very...
We wanted to show the sanding and the grinding to indicate that there's a great deal of hand workmanship that goes into this.
Well, fiberglass, being a moldable type material, involves an awful lot of hand finishing to make it exactly to the perfection you want.
There's the polishing of the famous grill.
Yes.
Now, you don't manufacture that.
That is manufactured and welded up on the outside. It's all 304 series stainless steel. In fact, I might mention that most of all the bright work on the car is either stainless steel or aluminum. Very little chrome plating, because chrome plating peels and can rust. Anti-corrosion is one of the biggest elements that we try and shoot for through the whole vehicle.
The grill itself is made where?
That is made out in Mequon, here at the Beer Sock.
In the Milwaukee area?
In the Milwaukee area. In fact, interestingly enough about the grill shell, the same individual has built these grill shells for 18 years, and that is the one part of the car that has never been changed through all 4 series of the vehicle. Is the hood ornament and the radiator. Those are the only 2 existing parts that go from model to model.
And for the number 5 model, any change in those areas?
No, there will not. I mean, that's our identity as such.
Here's the probably one of the most important features of the automobile is the frame itself, which weighs 1,100 pounds?
1,100 pounds. It's one of my pet fights with the federal government. They're always claiming that I should take 1,500 pounds out of the car for better fuel economy, but I feel that, and so do my owners, that we're more interested in saving lives than getting a 20% increase in fuel economy, when really we, in a sense, save fuel by limiting our production to only 250 vehicles a year, and secondarily, the average mileage driven by an Excalibur is probably half that of a normal car. So we feel that's our contribution to fuel saving.
What is the average number of miles driven a year?
It's close to 7,500 now. With the previous cars, it was lower. It was 4,000 to 5,000.
Do owners drive an Excalibur to work, or is it usually they have another automobile?
Well, but that's changed as the car has become more of a cosmopolitan type vehicle, comfortable, more amenities. they're finding the fun of driving the car, plus all the weather protection and anti-corrosion resistance it has. They find themselves leaving the Mercedes, the Cadillac, and the rest of them at home when they have multiple cars, and they end up taking this car to work. We don't feel that we are building a specialized car for Sunday rides on nice warm days.
As the older series.
Yes, the Series 1 car really was, we call that our NGTC of the line. I mean, that was a rather specialized vehicle that didn't have any comfort factors in it, not much weather protection, but was really an awful lot of fun.
Here's the assembly line.
Yeah, our assembly line...
There's the Roadster.
Right, it only carries 4 vehicles on it. It does not move, except on an 8-hour schedule. We jockey a car forward 1 notch. And we use the assembly line as a procedure for putting the whole car together. From that point on, the car ends up being a little bit equal to the Swedish system of being turned over to a team of individuals who then spend a week calibrating the vehicle, adjusting everything, getting everything correct.
I just want to cite this one. Here's a gentleman from Alaska who owns that automobile, and the license plate reads "My Toy." Now, why he drove that back to have that serviced from Alaska?
No, what happened here is in 1980, when we first started production, the very first cars were not totally updated as the present cars are with weather sealing and that, and some people have chosen to have their vehicles brought back to the factory for certain elements.
There's my automobile that I just brought in for servicing, and I had it serviced and happily. That's not true at all. That is the Series 4 Roadster, is it not?
Yes, it is. Now, I didn't see that you could get into the rumble seat on a day like that. But believe it or not, this is a car that can be driven in the snow. Interestingly enough, even though the engine is in the front of the car has a 54% rearward weight balance. So it handles very well in inclement weather.
That was delightful, and we had a great time and got a lot of information when we went to the factory. The only difficulty we did have, as noticed in that tape, is that there are areas in the factory with relatively low light, at least for the cameras that we used. Well, we had an introduction there to a number of your employees, and one of the things I noted in talking with them, and I spoke with all of them along the line, most of them anyhow, was the pride they have in their work.
Well, that's the thing. You know, you look at young individuals today, and you get the idea that a lot of them don't care whether they're working in a Chevrolet garage or whether they're working on this or that. But as small as our company is, we feel that we can find those select few that want to be a little bit different and take pride at the end of the day in what they go home and what they have accomplished.
What's the average age?
Well, the average age has changed over the years. It's come down in the last few years. It's closer now to the higher 20s.
Why is that? You don't see too many older people.
Well, we used to have a lot of older people, but I guess when you're in a group of a multitude of younger people who move quickly and this and that, and you're squeezed into a production system like ours, where every part of the car leapfrogs off of another part, the older fellows want to operate on a more subdued rate, and if they are pushed into having to, you know, work a little harder to keep up with the younger ones, they'd rather take a different job that doesn't need quite the push that we have to have.
Say in 1981, what was the average number of employees you had at working?
We had at the peak of 1981, when we got actually backlogged out almost a year on car deliveries, 205 people.
205.
Right.
And how about number of cars produced?
We produced 298 cars in the 81 model year. So we produced basically a car and a half per employee. That's an interesting statistic that you're hearing a lot more about at GM these days. They're talking about GM produces 7 cars per employee. Yet the wonderful world of Toyota puts out 67 cars per employee per year.
That's incredible.
And
what
so
does that mean?
Well, it's done by a lot of efficiency of the individuals within the plant, plus a lot of automation that the Japanese have gotten into. Obviously, the Japanese were late bloomers in the auto industry, so when they came into it, they ended up with all new technology to start with. The Americans tend to want to take the old machines and make them last longer, and therefore don't have the latest inconveniences of manufacture.
But if their average number per employee is in the 60s, and GM's is 7, well, what does that mean? They've got fewer employees?
They have, yes. In a Japanese plant, you will see a lot less employees. The Japanese feel that people ought to deal with people and not machines. They shouldn't be doing laborious jobs out there. So through the automation syndrome, they have a lot of assembly procedures where there are no humans involved. The Japanese want people out there servicing, selling, and doing the other things in contact with other people, not sitting there trying to assemble the same thing all day.
I noticed everyone had a uniform on.
Well, it's part of our whole syndrome. If you walk into a hospital and you find dirt on the floor and you find bad, dirty walls, you're going to have the idea that, how are they taking care of this place? So we try to an extreme condition to make sure our employees all look right, that the floors are kept clean, that the whole situation is very done well on an up and up. Because a lot of people come to the factory to see their car being built. When they walk through the factory, they don't want to be stumbling over hoses and all kinds of aspects on the ground.
How about, are there any employees who are able to afford a Excalibur new or used?
We have had 2 employees in the past that have bought Excaliburs, used, not new. And whether it's been the fact that they've got reasonable prices or they've bought one that, you know, that's 6 or 7 years old or some such thing like that, we have had 2 employees that have had them.
And of course, you and your brother both have your own automobiles, Excaliburs.
Yes.
I want to go to the slides that we have, and the first slide, I believe, is that of a Series 4 Phaeton. Oh, no, that's the
That's
Roadster.
the Roadster with the rumble seat in the back, which is closed in that particular view.
What's the price of that automobile?
The price of that vehicle is $55,000, and that car was built for a very special purpose. The most expensive classic car that traded on the auction markets 2 years ago was a 540K Mercedes for over $400,000. And our design of our vehicle has emulated the design of the Mercedes since 1929. That was the Series 1 car. Then we went to a 33 Mercedes. Then we went to a 35, and now the 38, 39.
What made that Mercedes worth that much money?
The fact that there were only 6 of them in existence, 2 of which basically are not complete. So there are really 4 complete cars in existence. And when you have 4 of anything with a Mercedes mark attached to it, plus, of course, the hypes that auctions put on, and this was back 1.5 years ago when people were getting unrealistic values for classic cars, somebody wanted to be known to have the most expensive classic car in the world, and it went to Monaco. So they could afford to purchase.
Let's go to the next slide. And this is a Phaeton Series 4. Price of this?
This car is $49,700. Now, why is this car cheaper?
What can I buy that for right now? I'll give you a check.
$49,700. That's one of the instances of the Excalibur.
Now, why is that
Excalibur has never been discounted in the history of the car.
All right, why, if I succeed that, why is that $7,000 less than the Roadster? Because that is a larger automobile, is it not?
Yes, but, well, basically, it's about a $5,000 difference. And the difference mainly is the fact that the Roadster is produced in so few numbers that the cost of building that car is quite a bit higher.
Okay.
Plus, I guess you could call, it's a limited production car within a limited production manufacturer. We build 3 of those a month, and there are some people, believe it or not, with 2,500 Excaliburs on the road over the 18 years that say, I want something different. I can be in Fort Lauderdale, and there are 16 cars that are just like mine but different colors. So people, in a sense, strive to have a little different version. Plus, of course, that being the sportier model, it's better for the single individual that just wants to date a lot of girls and that type of thing.
I wish that we had been in your plant. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago when you actually had a purple Phaeton?
Yes,
and an orange.
Believe it or
Phaeton.
not, as much as we are a limited production thing, we still leave most any color open to the owner. We have only 4 basic interior colors of which to build around, but as far as exterior paint colors, it's pretty well left open. And that was a purple color that matched his bathroom tile. For some reason, he was in love with his bathroom. And we had another car that was a very unusual orange that was built right next to it. So when the 2 of those were going down the assembly line, people walked in and said, what has happened to this place?
Incredible.
I used to walk in here and all I saw was white cars. 60% of our production last year were basically painted white and off-white.
But that's interesting. That leads to the next question. What type of customer, what type of person buys an Excalibur?
Well,
and not, say, a Mercedes for a similar price?
Well, that has changed over the years, and now our Series 4 car, with all its practicality, is being bought more by the professional man, the attorney, the doctor, the lawyer. We still get a few celebrities, but nothing like we had in the 60s, because there is practical value to this car, and the celebrity these days seems to either want to go to the extreme, it's got to be $100,000 and over, or else nobody will think he spent enough money. In fact, I have seen several Rolls Royces and different things where they put on their nameplate, on their license plate, 125 THOU. They want everybody to know they spent $125,000 for the car. Okay. So from that aspect, I guess we are mid-priced within the ostentatious end of the vehicles.
And it would appear, too, that mid-priced, that car would draw more attention than a Rolls-Royce.
Exactly.
It would catch my eye first.
Today's Rolls-Royce, even the Ferrari, Maserati, any of these have fallen into such a styling syndrome of copying everything that people can go down the road in a $100,000 vehicle and they're not even recognized. We have an interesting syndrome that happens with the Excalibur. We call it the thumbs up thing. You drive this car down the street and people are just walking up and it's like this all the time. They're recognized.
How about the income level? What would be the average income?
Of course, that can vary all over. It depends on how bad you need something.
But for those out there looking at the program, what should they be making a year before they attempt to purchase an automobile like this and be able to also maintain it?
Well, I would say generally a person that would buy this type of vehicle because of certain tax incentives and loopholes that are available should be in the $100,000 bracket and on up. But we have people that do earn a lot less than that buy a car and just do without other things.
And the age?
The average age of the buyer has also come down. My father coined a phrase when we first started in 1964 because it was his own age. The average age of the man whose life begins at 54. Now, basically, the average age of our owner is more in the high 30s, low 40s.
And the statement that an owner would want to make is that I made it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Look at me, I've made it.
It's the interesting thing. You can own a beautiful house up on a hill somewhere, but if you don't invite anybody over, nobody knows it. From this standpoint, the young entrepreneur that went out and invented a new electronic game or some such thing and became a multiple millionaire in 2 years, he wants to drive around and show everybody else that he's not a kid in school anymore.
Okay, now I buy an Excalibur for a great deal of money, and I live in Alaska. And I need it serviced. Do I have to come back to Milwaukee?
No, you do not. Basically, that's part of the design. All the driveline components in the Excalibur are General Motors orientation, and I don't mean of 5 years, 8 years ago. They're all brand new 1982 parts and components. One statement I would like to make here is that this car, unlike a lot of the so-called replica cars and custom conversion cars, does meet all the 1982 federal government standards, and that's hard to do with a car that looks 50 years old.
And the person who buys an Excalibur is a member of your family, the Excalibur family. I would think that when you spend that kind of money and have that love for an automobile, that there'd be a certain closeness between the
There is, and of course that's exemplified every year in our annual reunions and rallies that we have here in Milwaukee. We have what we call an Excalibur family. Yes, we're going to have the 10th annual reunion this year in Milwaukee in August, and we get in a neighborhood of 300 various owners that come back and enjoy a fabulous 3 days with us.
Now, how about maintenance cost?
Maintenance cost?
What would an oil change for a $50,000 automobile?
It's the same. It's the same as you would pay on a $10,000.
What's the gasoline tank capacity of?
30 gallons.
That's a big tank.
It's a big tank because back several years ago, when gas lines were thought to begin again, people said to me, "Just get me from L.A. to Las Vegas. I don't want to stop in between." And when we were getting basically 15 to 20 miles per gallon as a city highway fuel economy, you can see you got a range there of over 500 miles.
Now, when I drove the car, short distance, but nonetheless, I felt a real sense of power behind that wheel. And you sit very high. There's tremendous visibility and a lot of comfort. And I noticed that, did we show the slide on the dashboard? There it is.
You'll notice a generous amount of wood in there. That's all teak wood. Yeah. And the teak wood is done with a finish to, exemplify a little bit of the home furnishing aspect. You won't find plastic in there. And these so-called facades that they put in vehicles today that you're supposed to think are wood.
And you have FM stereo and air
complete
conditioning.
Stereo, tilt wheels, 6-way power seats. Theoretically, it's got all the conveniences that you'd find cruise control in a Cadillac or a Mercedes. And they're all standard equipment. We have no options.
It's genuine nostalgia and a practical automobile, I would think.
We feel that's one of the main goals, that not only does it look right, but it has to be practical and useful. People don't spend $50,000 for a weekend toy anymore.
Regular gasoline?
Yes, it takes regular gasoline.
Now the power. Has it lost some of the power that you had in the earlier series?
Well, interestingly enough, since the federal government got in the act in 1968 with the introduction of the federal standards, the car has almost doubled in weight and lost half its power. So we've had, over the past 18 years, a 4-to-1 decrease in the performance aspect. Now the car is 4,700 pounds, and it puts out about 150 horsepower. The insurance companies no longer classify it as a high-performance automobile for insurance purposes.
So insurance would cost
Insurance
no more
is
than,
quite
say, a
reasonable.
Seville?
Interestingly enough, there has only been 2 thefts of an Excalibur in 18 years amongst 2,500 cars. So that is not a problem. Replacement of parts is reasonably easy, so that isn't a problem. So people can get the insurance on these cars relatively easy, with the exception of what their driving record might be.
And for example, would it cost more than, say, a Seville?
The insurance on this is very comparable to a Mercedes.
Okay.
But it's not anywhere as high as a Corvette, which is substantially less money.
And the only reason it might have to be brought back to the plant is for warranty purposes?
Not necessarily warranty purposes. People sometimes make trips cross-country and they want to get updates or what's new and that type of thing done to the car. Or else, if we have vehicles that are involved in collisions, an insurance company will rather spend the money to send it back to have it properly done at the mother lode than to, in a sense, have some new firm get involved with it and not correct it properly.
So what we have here with the Excalibur, it would appear that it's a very practical example of genuine nostalgia, especially since you have the blending of the classic as well as modern component parts.
We've tried to do that and not just have an illusion of that, but have a real car that exemplifies year in, year out value. Interesting part is 40% of our owners are repeat buyers. And that says something right there.
30% of your owners?
40%.
40.
Are repeat buyers. And you wouldn't have that if you were putting out something that was just an illusion.
I'm going to start saving my money, maybe take some money out of the money markets. But David Stevens, I want to thank you very much for giving us a greater appreciation of one of your and Metropolitan Milwaukee's pride and joy.
Well, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I also want to suggest to our audience that if you'd like to make comments, either good or bad about the show, please write into West Dallas Cablevision at 1138 South 108th Street, West Dallas 53214, or please telephone us. We'd love very much to hear from you. Thank you. I'm Jim McNichol for McNichol Presents. Good night.
See, nothing was enhanced. It was 42 years ago.
Well, that showing you a little more about what we did. But we had a good run from 54 to 86. Some of you remember 82 when the recession had 18% interest rates, and we saw those things started to slow down. And we also got hit with the UAW coming after us. Went through an 8-week election campaign. Want to learn how to lose weight, go through a UAW election. I'll tell you what, I went through 8 weeks. We had a fellow from Chicago come up and help me run the campaign. And I asked him the night before, how are we going to do this? It's going to be close, Steve. Whole things. So the next morning, we had the election. We had 160 in the voting group. And he gave me an envelope before the election. He said, see, here's the results I think you're going to have. So, 160 in the voting group. I opened up the envelope. We had us winning 121 to 39 out of 160. And we wound up winning 140 to 40. 140. 120 to 40. So I got to go look at my sheets to see who I guess. He kept track of all. He could only talk to the manager supervisor, not the employee. So it was quite interesting. Couple of things. If you're looking for a great book, and if the author is right here, Mr. Bob Birmingham, who created this great book, which is available from Henschel House Publishing here in Milwaukee. And it kind of gives the story of all the things that Stevens family was involved in, from the Excaliburs to the Wheelmobiles to the snowmobiles or to the bobsleighs that David developed from Lake Placid. And then there's a book here called Rick Stevens Industrial Design. This is available online. In fact, in 2003, we had an exhibit at the Milwaukee Art Museum. So it took us about 6 years to get that done. And we had 68,000 people go through the exhibit through over 3 months. It was the second largest attended exhibit the museum ever had, other than the Leonardo da Vinci show. We had the Hiawatha train there that we got somebody sponsor. We had Wheelmobile. I got Oscar to bring a Wheelmobile in, and then I must have given 15 or 20 talks down there. I parked the Excalibur with it, so it looked very much like the when Dad passed away in 1995, he did this cartoon that went in the paper. Now that's a wedding funeral procession. We didn't feel the Excalibur and the Hiawatha train going around the corner. That's when I bought the original artwork when I gave one to each of the kids there. So that was quite an exhibit we had at the art museum. So that book is available on eBay. I think only the song color. So what happened after Excalibur in 62, 82, things started to slow down. We went into a chapter 11 October 30th of 85. The company was sold to a gentleman, I can't use that name, to a person. October 30th of 86, out of Chicago. We put some money together. Not enough to close it at the end. He comes to a closing 8 hours late, so I don't have enough money. So our attorney at the time, I said, you got to figure out a way to get this thing done. Got creative, but we got it done. I don't think he owned it 9 months or a year in which he lost it because he used parts, was sold to a German fellow who put his son in, who just graduated from Ivy League school after 6 months and spending a lot of money. He said, that's too much for the kid. He ran out of money. He sold it to another man by Geithner, who owned a big soccer team in Germany. He put his son in to run it. And he, after 5 years, spending $500,000 a month, or $6,000 a year for $30,000, he said, that's enough education for you. They closed it up. So it went bankrupt again. And then the late 90s, Alice Preston, speak a little bit, wound up buying the assets out of the bankruptcy court, so she controls it now. But after Excalibur was in 85, 86, when we were going through this, I got a call from Oscar Mayer, Madison, Wisconsin. You know how to build special, do you have any interest doing the Wienermobiles? And I'm going, well, yeah, I'm going to be out of the job shortly, but the company is getting sold. I got nothing else to do. But yeah, that sounds right. So I went and talked to them, and they told me they had taken the 1968 one, showed it around the country to see what the reaction would be. Some of you that are younger, like, remember the old, it used to be like the old ice cream wagon that thrown around the street. They had such a reaction, really, they wanted to build it again. So I talked to Dave, I said, Dave, we got nothing to do after we sell this place, what are we going to do? Would you help with the engineering of this thing? So he came up with a way of using PMC panel bands, like delivery bands. And you can cut it off the rocker panel, lift the body off, then the Wheelmobile, our fiberglass guy that ran our fiberglass department, he was had a small business in the vicinity that we wanted to expand it. And I said, all right, I'll give you some money to expand it if you'll build a Wheelmobile for it. Oh, he said, that sounds great. So he is still in business down on 94 going south, Fiber Tech. And he built the Wienermobiles for us. We built 13 of them, 9 of them from 88 to 89. 6 are in the U.S., 2 went to Spain, and 1 went to Japan. Everybody's been to Japan and eating sushi and fish, right? Well, we eat more processed meat, bologna, hot dogs, and things per person than we do in this country. So there's one over there in Japan. We built 4 more than in 2000, 2001, I think. They came up with a different chassis. We built those on a Isuzu chassis. They just took the cab off the front, but the Wheelmobile on there. So we had a good run with that. And then I'll finish with Dad here. But believably, after he went through severe depression in the early 70s, and with major issues, and one of our Excalibur owners helped him fix and made him healthy again, back at work. For a number of years, he wound up being teacher at high end, so you're going to be at a Sunday morning out at the school there. He taught there the last 10 or 12 years of his life. Had more fun doing that than he said anything. He said, this is more fun than getting a big contract, mob brings whatever. The first, he said, why do I want to go teach? And you'll learn why teachers do this for me. I think we're getting going over to the house one Saturday. So boy, he said, I really enjoy this teaching now. It's more fun than I used to get a contract or whatever. So really appreciated that. When he passed away in January of 94, 95, there must have been 250 of the students lined up going through the line, and after about an hour, Mother said, I can't stand this. We got to end this. I have some friends in the family with back line brought them through. So then we went from there, and at the funeral, and it was quite appreciative of all the kids that showed up that he had talked. He wasn't driving at the time, so the kids from the school would draw straws because he was going to come out and pick up the house and driving down and driving back. So that's fun. So I think Alice, where did she go?
I always.
This young lady is the one now responsible for rejuvenating Excalibur since she acquired all the assets, the namesake and everything else, and she's done a fantastic job of bringing it back. And I'm glad she made the association with Preston Design. Our young brother Kip his wife just went through some surgery for a brain tumor a few months ago, so they're down in Florida now. But Alice, if you come and talk a little about what your situation is now, and what you do, and how you brought this thing back, and what's going on. So, up to Alice, who has brought Excalibur back to life again, I guess, and created the thing, but why are you shipping them all to Europe? Came to work for us, Excalibur in 74. She ran our 60-person machine shop. This young lady here ran 60 guys out there, doing all the machine work, cutting all the frame parts that David engineered, designed, and welding department. She's one tough kid to work for. She ran her and everybody. So she did a great job on that. And then, of course, when Excalibur resold that, I had gotten a call from Oscar Mayer and put the contract together to build the Wienermobiles. And I said, Alice, we need some help. Because we didn't have a place to even build it. And we started at David's house out in the Common Walk, and then we wound up a little shop on Hampton down the street there I drove by, right? There was a place in Butler at the museum in between. And then we were in the museum. And if you remember the summer of 1988, we had record hot temperatures out. And boy, we had to brought a crew in from Madison to help us finish these things. So it was hotter than the Jesus. I'll tell one story about the Wienermobile, and which is a fun thing we had. When we were building them, Sally and I would take them out to the restaurant for dinner. We pull up to the valet parking. You got this thing that's 28 feet. The side door opens up, and the guy says, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I said, "Find a place to park." We built, as I said, 13 of those, but the very first one we built, Oscar Mayer was sponsoring Al Unser Jr. in the Indy 500 that year, 1988. And I've been going to the races since 1954, and Dad took us the first time. I've gone to 66 of them. So I've been there quite a few times, and I still go. So we got the car finished at about, the truck arrived to pick it up that Thursday. It was supposed to be on the On Friday, he picked it up. It was supposed to be on the track Saturday. No, it was going to be on the track Friday for Al Jr. to take it around the speedway. And we were about done with it around 4 o'clock. I had been up 3 days straight along with David and probably Alice trying to get it done. And the last minute, we're ready to load it on the truck, and we go to fire it up and nothing. And what the hell happened here? It was a short in the harness. So we had to send one of my kids out to David's house on a conwalk to go pull a harness out of another vehicle, one of the other of the EM vans, get that back and re-strip it through the car. We finished it at night that night. Dave and I drive 1 mile around the street there, the church operated. We put it back, we load it on the truck at midnight. Dave and I get into the car with our son Brooks, the one who lived in London 28 years. And he drives Dave and I down to Indianapolis. We get there at 4 in the morning. Phone rings at 5:30. It's Russ Whitaker from the head guy in the program. Steven, where the hell are you? We got to get the vehicle going. I said, oh, he should be here shortly. Get over to the track. So we got over there about 6 o'clock. The truck pulls in at 6:30. We put it out on the speedway on the front there. And Al Jr. comes walking out, and he gets in with the 5 executives, because it sat 6 people. There was a driver and a co-driver, and then there was 2 seats that face each other. So 6 people come riding it. So he gets in it and takes it around the track, and he comes back in, and they say, all right, Steve, why don't you get into it? So I got into his wife and some other people, and he said, well, let's see what this thing does. All I'm thinking of is the nuts and the car keys and the high rod nut. We finish this thing a few hours early. So he takes off. We go into turn 1 through the second downturn. We're going 100 miles an hour. And we go. And he takes this thing down into turn 3, and he starts to drift this thing. And I'm going to go. This thing, he's going to put this thing in the wall. Indianapolis Star is going to say, Wienerville just up to the wall by Unser, can't run in the roads. And I'm going to, what's going to happen? So we go to turn, we come out. I said, Al, you got your funds hanging out on the side. He takes us into turn 4. He drifts this thing out. We're within 6 inches of the wall, and I'm going to go, come in, right? We get straightened out. We're going down the start-finish line. I think we made it. We pull up to the start-finish line and say, this is great. We're going again. He stopped in front and grabbed the key out of there. Hell, you're not going anywhere. We're done. So I pulled the key out. We got out, and then I went to sleep for the next day. Well, until race next year. So we had a lot of fun with those. They say they're all over the world. They run these things 50,000 miles a year. They get 3,000 applications for 30 hot doggers that drive these things, and it's very popular. So it's one of the 3 icons of our country between McDonald's, the Coke bottle, and the Remo. College will think about it. So Alice, who was very helpful with the Wienermobiles and running the machine shop at Excalibur, and then running the Preston Auto Warranty Museum until Dad died. And she got the foolish idea to start the Excalibur Camelot business, and done a great job of it. She takes care of servicing my #1 prototype that's out here, I guess, and our daughter had the 79 there. So tell us what you do.
I just do what I always have done, my job. Make them work, run the car, get the cars working, find the parts for them, make the parts, and keep them on the road and yell at people for not using them.
How many roles do you think we've had over the years?
How many?
Different roles. Yeah.
Mostly, I guess, the only really job I had was before I went to work for Brooks Stevens. Because after that, it wasn't really a job. It was like, yeah, you know, my grandfather said, if you do something you love every day, you never work a day in your life. He's right. You don't. And you don't do it to make money, because you're certainly not going to make money in this business. You do it because you love doing it, and it's all I know how, and I'm too old to learn something new. So, I you know, machining and mechanic and race car mechanic and wheelmobile builder. It's all kind. There's probably not very many jobs I haven't done. So it's whatever somebody needed me to do, but I did. If I didn't know how, I learned in a hurry.
So about 2 years ago, I started going over to Camelot and talking with Alice. And about 9 months ago, he said, "Oh, we have the 60th anniversary of Excalibur coming up." And I said, "Well, I think we have the 90th anniversary of Rick Stevens coming up." And one thing led to another, and we're all grateful for everyone to be here today.
Yeah, it led to what you're having, what's happening this weekend, the last 3-day thing for me anyway. My expiration date's coming up, so, you know, and I don't know, these guys are doing a great job with Brooke Stevens, so I'm thinking you guys are gonna be here for a long time, long while, yes.
No, they're younger.
Yeah, they are younger.
A little bit.
So when I started going over, the phone is always ringing off the hook. And, Allison, I'm talking to this person, I'm talking to that person. There's been some pretty famous names that have driven Excalibur cars. Do you have any favorite stories or can name some of the names?
Phyllis Diller was by far the funniest. and just a real person, you know. We've had a lot of famous owners. We had the band Chicago. We had Sonny and Cher. We had Marty Ingalls and his wife Shirley Jones.
Rod Stewart, Steve McQueen.
Rod Stewart, Steve McQueen.
427.
Yeah, and of course Batman. Let's not forget Adam West.
Yeah, you showed me a book one time, and it has all of the buyers, the owners' names, and what car it is. And it's after Adam West, it's an occupation Batman.
It's just, most of them are pretty normal, pretty average people, you know, and they like the cars, so. We still deal with people like the Oak Ridge Boys. They have some that have been calling a lot of things. They have several now, but there's still some people out there who have it. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think he got taken to the cleaners when he bought it, but.
Probably okay.
Yeah, probably didn't hurt his pocketbook last year.
Yeah. So sometimes I come over and you're working on something really intently. I've seen you machine parts, working on like ornaments or things like that. What are some of the favorite parts you've made for Excalibur cars?
There isn't any favorite part. There's just most GM stuff that if you use a GM part, Scott, it's 9 times out of 10 it's modified. It's not an off-the-shelf thing. It's not like a Lexus or whatever. You just go buy it. And when you tell people that, they're like, "Oh yeah, sure. I think I can, go find it here, or go find it there." So they don't believe you. But things that I made, I guess. All the parts for the hood ornaments, those are kind of fun because they're small. The smaller the part, the more fun it is, and because it's more of a challenge to make.
Yeah.
I like running the lathe and.
Yeah, some of these parts, we'll look at them together, and Alice recalls doing the drawing actually back in the day, decades ago, and sometimes you can recall, what's the drill bit size, what's the hole diameter, things like that.
That was before I got really old, started forgetting. But yeah, I used to know all the part numbers by heart, but you start forgetting that after a while, plus after being sick for a while and chemo, that kind of, I thought the doctor was kidding when he said chemo brain. Turns out it's a real thing. I was making fun of him, and he said, "Oh no, that's a real thing. You're But yeah, it's fun. It's fun dealing with the people when they call. How do you get this out? How do you do that? I had a guy call last week, how do you change the battery? You can't get it out of the car. Like, take the side mount off, take the side panel off, and you can just take it right out. Oh, no, it doesn't come out that way. I said, look, if my old ass can do it, you can do it. So guess what? So people don't realize that car was built in such a way that you could take the side panels and the side mounts off, and you could get to everything very easily. It's not difficult to get to, you know, but some people they don't want to call and ask. Or they'll call and say, can I talk to somebody that knows about these cars? And I'll say, well, what can I help you with? And they'll say, no, I need to talk to somebody that knows about it. Okay. So there isn't anybody else to talk to, so you talk to me or you just go away. Forever, right, yeah. So, but a lot of people, once you explain things to them and tell them things, they're okay with it, and they know I know what I'm talking about most of the time. You know, I do have people that, you know, ask a question about, well, when's the last time you changed the brake fluid? You know, they'll call because their brakes aren't working right. I've been bleeding them. Did you flush them? Oh yeah, next you're going to tell me that I need liquor fluid or I need to change the air in my tires. And those are the kind of people you want to hang up on. You know, so.
I think the people would enjoy hearing how you met Brooke Stevens the first time.
Oh. I was 17 years old, 61 years ago.
Giving away your age.
I know.
You can still don't have it.
They don't have a calculator out. I was working at a garage on Brady and Farm for Carouge Sanitary. And the guy pulled in with a 1947 Woody station wagon, a Merc. And I was like, oh, nice Merc. And he said, well, I need to talk to the mechanic. I need a new battery. I said, okay, but, you know. And he goes, no, I need to talk to the mechanic. And I am the mechanic here. And he's like, well, what does he do? I said, he pumps gas and washes the window. And then I was Ronnie Cato, and he said, well, if you ever want to work at a really cool place, as long as you seem to know your cars, he said, here's my card. Come out here to the Brooke Stevens Museum. We're looking for a mechanic to work on the cars in the museum. And
it was a beautiful museum.
It was.
It was gorgeous.
And so after about a week, the owner of the garage, Mr. Sanitarian, was not a nice guy. I ended up anyway hitting him with a wrench. He was grabbing something he shouldn't grab. And I quit. So I went out to Matt One and looked up Ronnie, and he said, oh, good, you're just in time. We got this old travel all in here, and if you can adjust the tappets, you can have the jobs. So, and I had a cowboy hat on, jeans, cowboy boots. My hair was down to my butt in a ponytail. And climbed in, sat on the fender well, took the valve covers off, started adjusting. Mr. Stevens walked in. Ronnie said, oh, Mr. Stevens, I want you to meet our new mechanic. And he said, well, if he's going to work here, he needs to get a haircut. And Ronnie goes, no, this is Alice Preston, and she is going to work. And he goes, oh, my gosh, call me Brooks. And we became really good friends. So he never judged. You know, if you knew what you were doing, he didn't care. He wasn't chauvinistic or any of those things. If you could do it, that was your job, and to do it. And Brooks was the one that really kind of pushed me to do more things than I ever thought. He'd say, well, do you think we can? And I'm thinking to myself, no, I can't do that. And I didn't want to disappoint him, so I would do it, and I go, oh, I guess I did do that. So that's kind of how I ended up out there.
Some of the things that he taught you were, he said drafting, right?
He was trying to teach me how to draw things because I, like David, do everything one-dimensional. I didn't know how to draw or do that. He goes, well, you gotta make it so that you can, if you looked at it from a different angle, you know.
Two-dimensional.
Huh?
Two-dimensional.
Yeah. Well, shit, I didn't even graduate high school. I was lucky I knew how to draw straight lines. So, yeah, he taught me a lot of things. And he taught me how to treat people and communicate with people. And yes, I don't have a filter. And that's just who I am. So, you know, don't ask me a question if you don't want the answer. So, and we always got along fine with that. So, you know.
Now, as I might mention your connection with the original Bazzavi family.
Oh, priorities. When we first moved from the farm, because I was born and raised on a farm, everybody goes, why do you fix cars? What's that in that? Well, if you fix the tractor, you want it. So, I had to fix the tractor. And when we moved into the city, we lived on by Mandela Box Company on Van Buren and Prospect, all over here. And across the alley was a guy named Ray Bazzavi Sr. And I was a kid, and he built an airplane, and he had to cut the side of the garage out to get it out because it didn't think how he did it. And then he was building, I don't know if any of you are from the city or remember, there was these big yellow finned cars called the X2, the X3.
Yeah, soft.
He built, yes,
Steering wheel in the
with
middle.
no steering wheel. They had a pillar in the middle. And he built those. And as a kid, I hung out there at the garage and that just, I don't know, I just kind of got into more mechanical stuff.
That's where the original J cars were built, 1951 and 2.
Yeah, he's the one that did the J cars, the original J cars. And his son was involved a little bit in that too, Ray Jr. Ray just died earlier this year. So now most everybody's gone, you know. I'm still here, Bob's still here, David's still here, you know, but somebody's got to carry this on. You know, that's my biggest concern is that everything doesn't go in a dumpster and nobody takes this over. You know, nobody. And it's not like you can go on the computer to find the parts. You have to open a book and read it. So, and I have all the books. I have all the everything. Okay.
Tell them a little bit how you got fortunate enough to end up all the stuff you had from remnants.
I don't know if that was fortunate or stupidity. When Jens Geitlinger, which was the son that owned Excalibur at the time, was having a rummage sale of all the stuff at Excalibur, and I went and I talked to the guy, and he said, I got to get out of this, I'm leaving, you know, I'm going to get rid of it. So I had some Excaliburs that I had bought over the years and some money put away, and I talked to him about purchasing it. All the parts and everything. Well, then he took the money and so he left town and abandoned the building. And I was fortunate enough to Sal Bando, used to be a Milwaukee Brewers raised. Sal Bando had a partner named was Bando McLaughlin, and they were the people that financed him. And Sal called me one day and he said, "Hey, you still want Excalibur?" I said, "Yeah, I don't have any money left." And he said, "But I'm going to make you a really sweet deal."
An offer you can't do.
And they did. I had to come up with some more money, but they did make a good deal. And I bought it. And then I said, "Well, what about the trademarks?" He said, "Oh, that's extra." So I had to borrow money from my brother to buy the trademarks. And then myself and Scott Jones worked during the day at my shop. And then at night, we'd work until about 2 in the afternoon. After that, we'd go to the factory, box stuff up, sort stuff out, and start packing stuff up. And so then we'd bring a couple of loads a night, and we'd sleep for a little while, and there was no heat in the building, and the roof leaked. It was freezing cold, so it was ice on the floor. You know, it was, it took us, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months. Took us a while to get it all out of there. And then the guy said, the guy that bought the building was the guy that owns Allied Pool. Lovely fellow.
Dick Yoder?
Pardon?
Dick Yoder?
The owner.
Dick Yoder.
Oh, that is his name. Anyway, he goes, I want this building broom swept. Well, first he said, I bought everything here, and so make sure that forklift doesn't go anywhere. I said, that's bullshit. I'm renting this forklift truck. And then he said, well, I want this building broom swept before you leave. So the day we had to leave, we had to get sweeping compound, and we broom swept the whole thing. He wanted to come over and inspect it. He came over to inspect it and drove a bulldozer through the building. I was so pissed. Yes. He was being an ass. But I have video of us moving all that stuff. I still have video and stuff of us moving. Wow. So that's kind of how I ended up with it, and now I don't know what I'm doing with it.
What are your future hopes for the brand?
For the brand, my future is about over, but I'm hoping somebody purchases it from me. We got all the molds, and I mean, you got to figure that was a 100,000 square foot building.
Right.
My building's 10,000 square feet. You know what 10 pounds of shit in a 5 pound bag?
Your farm roots are showing. Your farm roots are showing.
If you're shocked, you don't know me. So yeah, I'm hoping that somebody wants to continue it because there is interest in it. As you can see by the people in Europe, you know, they love them over there. They tell me by the time those stupid Americans figure out what they are, we're going to own them all, and they might. I think they own over half of them now. Between Europe and all that whole area over there, you know. So the last car I sent to Europe I sent one to Germany, but after that I sent one to Ireland. Now I've got 2 cars in Ireland. The Series 2 and the Series 4.
As much as it rains in Ireland, they're not driving a whole lot.
What?
With as much as it rains in Ireland, they're not driving a whole lot.
I don't know. He seems to be driving it quite a bit, but he enjoys his car. That's for sure. Just about everybody that has them overseas enjoy them. I'm always happy to see they post these Facebook videos of their events, and it looks like they have an event every couple times a year, 2-3 times a year, and there's quite a number of cars. So that's nice to see, you know, that somebody is interested in them. Got to get people here. Don't know how to do that. Anybody got me?
Is it possible that somebody in Europe might buy the business from you and
it could be possible. We did have a guy about 9 years ago in Denmark that was going to buy it, and that right around that time is when the economy took a crap, and it started in Europe, and he lost his investors. Well, by that point, they already had the molds over there, and so it took me 4 years to get them back, and I had to pay to get them back. So that won't happen again.
So the fun part is driving the cars, and there's been some pretty great rallies, and You even taken Brooks in that rally, is that right?
We did. We took Brooks, the first car we took him in was the Alfa Romeo. David came on. We said, and Stevie goes, "You are not taking my And Brooks overheard that and he said, "Write the check, we're going." And he had a blast. He's like, I always flew over this, but I never driven anywhere. He loved it. And when we went over the pass in Colorado in that Alfa Romeo, the 50, Super Leggera, he goes, "It's snowing, the vacuum wiper blades, the one on my side, thank God, was still working, the one on his side quit." And he goes, "Let's not crash. This is about as close to God as I want to get." But we took fun. And we took him on another one, and then didn't you take him on the Kickapoo too?
Yeah.
And that was the last, but he didn't want to come home. Said, "Well, Alice is going to have a fit, He goes, "Well, there's the Amelia or whatever it was in California." He said, "We could just go there." I'm glad he enjoyed it. He got to play with his toys. And that was last year. So that was really fun.
So the Alfa Romeo was the blue one.
Yeah, we called it the Sapphire Express.
Yeah, and wasn't there an incident when you were loading it, or somebody was loading that sprayed some paint or?
Here's Julie here.
But it was fixed, right?
Yeah, Dave said, "Let me drive it in there. I don't want to see that." It had a ridge, and the one side kind of got. So it was about 6 feet, something like that. Anyway, we get to Phoenix. I call little Dave Coleman, and I said, "Dave, we have a problem, and we need you to paint a piece of vinyl the same color, blue, and send it overnight so that we can put it on here." And so he did that, and we got it overnight, and before we displayed it at the dial center, we put this thin strip of vinyl on there, painted with that color. No one ever noticed. It sold, and they never noticed it, and as far as I know, it's still there.
That was a minor problem. Explain the thing about the tires that we had on.
Oh, what the hell? For some reason, the tires went to hell. The inner tube went out, and we couldn't get new. We were at Holiday Inn. I think it was a Holiday Inn.
And we were having multiple flats.
Yeah, we kept getting flat tires because when they put the inner tube, if you don't powder, you have to put powder in a tire to put an inner tube in, so it doesn't friction wear. Well, they just kept going flat, and because of where the hole was,
the valve stem was in the wrong place in the tube.
You couldn't get any inner tubes with that configuration for the valve stem. So we got 4 new inner tubes. We took beer cans. We took beer cans and duct tape and closed the holes that were in it and drilled new holes for the new inner tubes that we got. Bought a shitload of baby powder, put it all together. The thing sitting out in the parking lot looked like it had been vandalized because it had no wheel. And got it all going and finished the race and never had another.
We had to do 1,000 miles in 4 days, which meant that we had multiple cars and multiple rallies, and all being unusual cars, they were very fast. They would all get to the resort hours earlier. Alice and I would end up with Dad getting there just about missing dinner time, having to work on the car.
Vulcanize a new inner tube.
And, another car that we took on the rally in Arizona was the L-29 Cord.
Yeah.
You know, which
Well, that was
ended up losing a wheel.
Well, the wheel went bouncing and missed. We just passed a shopping mall. And this thing just went boing. It was down the street bed, and it didn't kill anybody. It missed the people there. Yeah, we've had some interesting signs with the car. It does.
Was that the Cord with those real fancy hubcaps that were like?
Yes, and that was the problem, the little hubcaps.
Yeah, they looked like they were like a triangle.
Yeah.
You know, they stuck out like 6 inches.
Yeah, and it wasn't allowed the cap to tighten it up. I think we dealt with after that. We kept them, but
The story I have, the ones in here that I think it was the Arizona one, that used to speak at the events at night or something.
yes, yeah.
And there was a gentleman by the name of Count Brockett
Oh, yeah.
that had a great Ferrari collection over outside of London. And he was one of the speakers with Dad.
Yeah.
Well, our son Brooks, who moved to London in 95 or 6 or something, got married at Rocket Hall, his birthplace, and where his family had owned it since the 1400s. It's a great estate, and it turned it into a facility for events and weddings. And so Brooks got married there at I think it's in 99, and with Lord Brockett, and we cool about him having that dad at the thing there. So we find out later, a number of years later, he's getting a divorce. He had quite a Ferrari collection he bought in the 90s, so I know. Except with the divorce coming, he needed to sell some cars to pay her off on the settlement, but the market was going down. He needed money. So he brought in the excavators in that 18-hole golf course. They went out on the golf course at night. They dug up some places, and they took the mechanics out of the engine, the suspension, all that stuff. Buried it in the golf course.
In drums.
And then a few days, little short time later, there's a big fire. And there all the Ferraris went. The mechanics are all buried out in the golf course. When the wife is going through the divorce, she says to the insurance company, check the 18-hole and the 15-hole. So they go out, sure enough, they start digging up there, they find the engine, transmission, suspensions, and so on. He was convicted and went to jail. I remember they had a program on 60 Minutes on him. And he said, this is not becoming of my stature. He got himself out not to be here. But that's the story that I remember Dad and Brockett being speakers of one of them.
Yeah, and ended up in a food fight.
With Dad?
Well, no, we were sitting down by then, but Brockett was talking, and somebody threw a dinner roll at him. All of a sudden, everybody was throwing dinner rolls at everybody. Those were always fun. You know, we'd drive during the day, and we'd work on the cars at night, everybody's cars, not just ours, because Sam Walton supplied a semi that was like a shop. It had drill presses and every kind of tool you could ever need. And that truck went from stop to stop to stop so that anybody's car that wasn't working, you could get it fixed. And he had mechanics, but Scotty and I both volunteered. So we worked on his cars all night and crap all day. But you got to work on a lot of really cool cars.
Speaking of famous owners that we had, the early one was Tony Curtis. And we delivered what I think number 6 or 7 Excalibur. And just after he stopped building the great race. Great county. So Sally and I went out to deliver the car together. We were out in California. And he does have the blue eye, right, Sal? We delivered him the car there. Loved it. But most of these guys you can't talk to. The one of the friendliest ones I ever met was Burnell Roberts, who was the star of Bonanza, I think.
Yep,
And he became a pick up the car in Milwaukee and throw it back with maybe Frank was, but other ones that Linda Evans. She was John Derrick. Linda Evans was one of my favorite actresses back in those days, but I didn't know it was her that was getting the car, picking it up with. She married. So they came to Milwaukee to pick the car up to drive it back, and I told Sally, I said, "Oh, I said, there was this fellow, keep looking girl here with it, but I don't remember who her name was." She said, I knew his name. Oh, Linda Evans. That's the one you've been watching on the Big Valley for years.
And he finally was with her all day long. Oh, Derek. I know that.
Oh, yeah, John Derrick.
Yeah.
She was with John Derrick. And then Phyllis Dillon, one of our, she did buy 4 cars. Had 4 of them there. We had a fun time, but most of those people were, I remember Sammy Davis Jr. agent called me. Oh, Mr. Davis wants the car. I said, oh, great. We spent a few times talking again. I said, okay, send us $1,000 deposit. We'll get started. Well, what do you need? I said, yeah, we need the deposit to get started. Well, but this is for Sammy Davis. I said, who? Sammy Davis. He wants to be the undertaker. I said, I understand that. But he can buy it like Phil's doing. Well, but he's going to use this in his movie. I said, the other people do too. Well, so I said, you know, it's $1,000 down on the balance with the car. You mean he's going to have to buy this car? Let one of you clowns have it, then everybody's going to buy it. That ain't going to work. Okay. He said, well, you know, we can get a Mustang. I said, Mustangs are a dime a dozen. Excaliburs aren't. Go get your Mustang. Oh.
Did they pay up? How did you pay up?
Hey, never bought.
We just even in Monaco.
Pardon?
Sammy Davis.
Oh, he was at the show. We had a dealer in Monte Carlo for a couple of years till he disappeared. Found it was the lawyer for Mattel with the electronics when they went into bankruptcy, and he wound up taking all the money. Nobody knew it. I wound up moving to Monte Carlo over the Excalibur dealership right up the street from the casino. He bought 10 or 12 cars and sold them. He put a thing together, it was a European PGA. It was a statistical genius. And he went through and he found how many holes in one were done in a season on the tournament. And he knew how to, so he gave the cars away if they got a hole in one. So he bought the insurance policy for this. When he wound up with 4 holes in one and 4 cars were sold in the air, the insurance company tried to renege on the deal, saying, well, this wasn't fair. He said, well, I did my work. You gotta buy the cars and they gotta go. But we did that together. But we had a dealer, we had a big dealer in Tokyo for a while, at the Michikoshi department store. We had a great time. Sally, my wife, was a great part of making everything happen. And you were a great part.
What about, do you have any, final questions? Yeah. What about Dean Martin? I hear he used to own one at 64. Dean Martin?
Yeah, he owned one also.
Do you remember delivering it to him, or did somebody?
No, I think we had the dealer on Sunrise Boulevard, for sugar. For sure. Yeah.
Now, did Frank Sinatra own one?
I don't recall. Okay. Sometimes they went between the guys, you know, they were sold.
Yeah. That's like
a more tough to deal with.
Oh, really?
They all expected them for nothing.
Yeah. Pulling Sammy.
Some, like I say, Burnell Roberts was super nice to deal with, and some of them, but Phyllis Dillon, she came to a couple of our rallies here. She was at summer rally.
He'd give out the trophies and stuff and start the race, and yeah, she was fun.
And she was no different in person than she was on television. She was the same all the time. She was a real person. And she was one of the ones that I say didn't believe her own press release. Let's thank Ryan for putting this whole thing together.
Well, Brooks Stevens Design has always been an incubator for designers, and tonight we want to recognize a couple good ones, great ones actually. Motorcycle legend Willie G. Davidson. Right over here.
I just want to come up and I'm trapped in my new design, you know it is. But I'll get out of here. Go ahead.
Started his career at Brooks Stevens Design and got out of Pasadena School of Design.
So when I get up to that,
I'd like to work for Harley.
bought it, very nice. And that's a 1949 big twin Harley, and the most important part of it is that Brooks engine. That was done by Brooks, and it's used to this day to identify the Japanese. I don't know if they lifted everything. But that's a beautiful bike. My son just found one of them. And it was before it was kind of collected like I am. Yeah. But that motorcycle.
You have one in the exhibit at the museum. The first year.
That's the exhibit.
Yeah.
So I spotted this thing. I looked at all these beautiful cars, but that bike stood out.
Since it had your name on it,
My name on it. So that's all. Thank you.
I want to thank Brian and Mike and the whole crew here, because this started out as a little idea and these guys took the ball and ran with it, because obviously I don't have the time and I don't have that kind of digital skill, but they did a fabulous job.
We also want to recognize Louis Nutz, a Brooks Stevens Design alumni, and also 36-year Harley-Davidson designer.
I just want to briefly recognize Brooks was a pioneer in industrial design. I think, was he at the same time as Henry Dreyfuss in New York? Yeah. Simultaneous. And so virtually one of the two design offices ever created in the country. And I think the number of products they affected is spectacular. We're turning design, industrial design, into a true differentiator, which thankfully this name continues with an engineering emphasis as well as industrial design. But Brooks was working at that office. I started in 1966 when I was a junior in high school on Wilson Drive, and followed them out to the Mequon, whatever they called the Octagon building. And I knew Dave Coleman very well. But I mean, my era was the associates. Willie was there before me, but John Hughes, Wayne Wagner, John Bradley, Tom Green, that whole era, these are fun places to work. Design offices should be. And when I went to Harley in 1974, Willie and I were alone for a great number of years, but our staff eventually was up to 17, 18 people. But design offices are unique, and they should be fun places to work. But Brooks was an incubator for a lot of these designers that came through, that went to different companies, started their own design firms. But when you came through Brooks Stevens, that was your resume. And your dad, I think, was one of the best salesmen I've ever seen in the world. He was the quintessential salesman. And he'd have when we did that AMX with the rumble seat in the back, and those executives from American Motors came there and stuff, and Brooks would come in, he had a yellow and black striped, vertically striped sport coat and a straw hat and a cane. God, he killed it. And his sales ability, I mean, he was intimidating, but he did it with humor. And so it was never offensive to people. But if you were one of these executives of a client and he worked a magic that you had to see it his way and the way the design office did it, or clearly you're not as smart. It was his sales capability. And he was a special man. And I'm very thankful that I worked there. I'm thankful this name continues. It's as important as the name Harley-Davidson that needs to continue. Pioneers in design. Okay.
Boys would create the designs factory, have 5 or 6 stuff. Have from what the design he wanted to some that he didn't like, that he would show them first to the client to get them to steer with the one that he wanted.
Correct. The strategy.
Yeah, he had a strategy of how he promoted it. And that was the difference between him and our brother Kip, who was a designer. In fact, Kip, when he graduated out of Syracuse University of Design, he went to work for American Motors.
Yep.
And decided he didn't have his good friends with Dick Key. But he went to work for American Motors. The only problem was American Motors was the only unionized design house in the automobile industry. So when Kip went in there, last one out. But he got let go from there after about a year when American Motors had to cut back on some stuff. So Kip went out to New York. He went to work for Raymond Bowie. And Bowie found out after about 6 months that there was somebody by the name of Kip Stevens. So he comes up to his desk one day. You're Kip Stevens? I guess. He said, is your father Brooks Stevens? Yes, you're on here. He said, well, the door. He then went to work for Dreyfus for a while.
Okay.
And then he started his own small firm out there. And then when Dad had open heart surgery in 77, I think he was one of the first ones with Dr. Dudley Johnson to do open heart surgery. And I remember Dad saying, oh, yes, when they do this, they cut you open, pluck you open like a chicken and spread the heart. And, today they can do it relatively easily. I remember when he had that done in 78, so Jim found out, then I called Jim, I said, Jim, Dad needs some help here. You're in the design business. Dave and I were at the Excalibur business running quite well then. So we got him to come back here and he took over the design office, but he didn't have the market, the sales ability that Dad had. He was a very good guy to do the drawings, but to go out and peddle the merchandise, so he went through some tough times of trying to get salespeople to try to sell the product. That's not easy.
No.
When you went over to Harley with Willie, what was the ethos that you brought with you that created the design studio at Harley-Davidson? Because the work you guys did over that arc of time through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, that studio had a feeling, it had an ethos. That come from Brooks?
I think partially, I mean, a group of talented designers in a common location, if they're real people, they're going to have fun together and enjoy employment. I think the one thing that Willie and I always practiced, that we both probably brought from Brooks Stevens, was you keep your wastebasket full. That you have to try multiple designs many times. There's not just a one single aha. It's an iterative process. It's a process of filling the wastebasket, and that good ideas come from anywhere. I mean, Willie and I worked, our staff, any idea could come from anybody at any time. And I think that was true at Brooks too. When, even though guys were assigned individual projects, when you're exposed to that model shop and you see clay models, which is how I got originally hired in 1974, was to be a clay modeler for Willie. People comment on things because it's physically present. You watch it evolve. And the questions of, did you ever think of trying it this way? It's a great process. But it's not just one person. And it's not just one idea. It's actually, to get to the simplest idea is the hardest work. So you're throwing a lot of complicated things away first.
Reminded story. Steve mentioned that the Brooks Stevens offices were on Wilson and Capitol Drive. And then part of the story, you reminded me of the word wastebasket. There was a young fellow by the name of Grant Larson. And Grant was, he was a Homestead high school student. His father and Brooks were friendly. And Brooks Stevens and Associates, there was a, if I remember right, an insurance company owned the building on Wilson and Capitol Drive. And so they wanted the building and they forced them to build that little octagon house on Bay Road. Well, Grant's father was friends with Brooks. And as such, he got a job going to the museum and polishing the cars and all that. And they put up the building. And correct me if I'm wrong on all this, and they added to his duties to empty their waste baskets.
Yeah.
So we were having one, well, I'll tell you where Grant is. Grant works for Porsche. He designed the Boxster, on the Pan Americans in Milwaukee, Floyd. And he would empty the waste baskets there. And we were having lunch. Oh, let's go back maybe 15 years. He used to come in Europe. They shut down for a month or it's fall holiday. They need to come home. And I say we, it was a bunch of guys. Bob Chen just put it together. And he told a story. And he said, I'm the only guy that picked this, his vocation from dumpster diving. He used to pick out plans and things over and throw them in the waste basket.
Oh, he's the father of the Boxster. He really was.
Yeah, a lot of great times.
I got a question. Do you think Excalibur would have happened in the absence of the design office? Or do you think it incubated out of that?
Well,
because you two guys did it. I mean,
well, I think the luckiest thing was Studebaker decided not to show the car.
yes.
They said they didn't go into the Studebaker to like a lot of the specialty cars. I remember when GM, Chrysler, Ford, they bring the unusual cars there, and of course they wound up going back to the dumpsters after we're done with them. So, you know, what would have happened, I don't know. I know when we built that one car, they had a display at the air park when we used to have the auto show on. Mm-hmm. So we had the chassis on display. So Dad said, all right, let's they'll give me the chassis to build this thing. So that's how we did it. Now, you know, I think the timing was right.
Right.
You know, we were into the Cord was the first one of these that Glenn Cray had in Oklahoma was building reproductions of, they used to call it the coffin nose Cord, the A12 Cord. He was building those in Oklahoma. That was really the first of the graphic card. Or we termed neo-classics, which sound a little better than graphic card. So that was it. So Dad came up with the idea first of it. You know, he had done a lot of that stuff for outboard marine.
Correct.
Which was one of the big clients. Every year he came up with a new idea. He did the round boat where you had a motor on each side, steered like a bulldozer, going power to one side and the other, how you turned it. And you could heel around. And a design of having a helicopter blade on your boat.
Then the Linkster.
Good here, you lift it up and go over, screw over the actually drop down. But the round boat, I remember the Russians got on his case because they claimed they had designed that first. They had a vehicle like that. And so I remember Dad showing me some articles. Oh yeah, they're copying. No.
Does the Lakester still exist?
Lakester was the one that slid in.
Correct. The trailer was the car?
The trailer was the car. That was built in San Francisco Ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was built in your shop, I think.
Well, it was built out in David's old shop in that one. Just we moved, I got started, we built the first few cars out in David's shop in there.
Okay.
And then we moved on to Walden Bruce. We were there for a year for a little year. Then we went to West Dallas in January '66. We started out at 16,000 square feet. When we were done, we were 125,000. And 250 employees, which I always said there's 248 too many. We had a great run. I mean, the timing is right. The buyers for those cars were people of our father's vintage.
Yes.
And they were still around. Of course, by the early 80s, most of them were under the juniors, as I call them. And it was changed because the people of our vintage were into the 4420 GTO Pontiacs, the muscle cars of the 60s and 70s. That was the next popular product that came along.
Right.
So, and the sad thing that the kids today don't recognize the beauty of the old original classics, the Isada Machines, the Spanos Louisa, the Delhi, Galages, things like that. I mean, they're both of them museum pieces. But there's not an appreciation for those cars today, and they're all in collectors.
Right.
So the Excalibur had a period of time, but it's amazing the interest for the car over in Europe. And I think a lot of that is because of its Mercedes heritage. I mean, I think they see it over there and think it is a Mercedes or something.
Right.
So they liken to it. But now it's sold a lot over there. But I did the Zoom call with them on Monday night over there at dinner. That French rally they had. They told me that they were supposed to prove them all. That's thirds of what we built, 3,500 of them. I think it's a city going over there, but somebody said the Americans don't appreciate it over here.
As long as they're cared for.
When we have 500-year-old buildings, it's good to have a 50-year-old car.
When you see the videos of the Excalibur meet going through the mountains and the castle, it fits. It just fits. It looks like it belongs there. So maybe that's where it'll end up. I don't know. But as long as it continues, I don't care where it continues.
Well, one of the things Mel and I have done, we have a basement full of archive stuff on Excalibur, and Alice has some. And we do. I made arrangements with Johnson Historical Society on Madison. That's gonna go there instead of in the dumpster.
Yep.
And so most of the stuff will go there. The salary is saying, what happens, when we go, they go, put this in the dumpster, we don't want the kids to come and put it there. So we made arrangements, it's there, Sal and I went up to the little 200,000 square foot warehouse outside of Madison, which nobody knows exists. In fact, when we go into it, it's like the Indiana Jones movie where they're looking for the it's called, huge warehouse, that's what it's like, but they've got 5 or 6 climate controlled different rooms, and they have the largest film collection in the world. A lot of them came from college. All the original RKO films of that they have out there. All kinds of stuff. They have a display up for sale, and I sell them, but their product status signed from lawnmowers out, lawnmowers, Evergreen outboard motors to Miller packaging. They've got quite a collection of stuff up there.
They have a Harley. How many Thompson's Harley is there?
How many Thompson's Harley-Davidson there? Gorgeous. And they have Tommy Bartlett's original ski boat. So they have all kinds of stuff.
I think we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Mike Hopkins, current president of Preston, is going to talk about the future, and everyone is welcome to watch.